Well, hello and happy Tuesday. It's been a minute, been on a little bit of a hiatus, a break, traveling and all the things. Welcome to Tuesday Motivation and Conversation. Um, I'm going to kind of set us up for what we're going to talk about for the end of the quarter, end of the year. And we'll be talking about this all month. And then as we move forward, I may add some things to it. But of course, it's been an amazing time of traveling and being a part of various retreats and conferences and things of that nature. And I found a common theme throughout, and that's what I want to kind of um, segue into tonight as we go into this conversation. Of course, clarity is my vein along with vision, clarity and vision. And so, one of the things that I am learning as I have been traveling the country and being a part of various conferences and speaking um, at retreats and things of that nature is that we really need to understand the perspective of clarity for both our personal life and our professional life. And so it is important that we, number one, understand what it means for us. And clarity is about who we are, why we are, and what we are. And so, in preparing for my just recent webinar, Let's Talk Clarity, one of the things that was a major piece of that webinar was the Clarity OS, Clarity Operating System. And so I want to kind of get into that tonight, and I want to talk about that a little bit and just give you a foundation. And then as we proceed for the remainder of this year, the end of the quarter, these final weeks of the year, I want to really share with you about a clarity operating system and just encourage you. If you already have one, kudos to you. If you don't, because I know a lot of times we think we are clear and we're not. And so I think it's something we need to practically put into practice and think about, and not only just think about it, but really understand that having clarity or gaining clarity, number one, is not a discovery. Number two, is not a destination. And number three, it's not a one time thing. It is a process. And so you have to understand how you're going to put your clarity operation rating system in place and how you're going to make it work for you, right? And so um, I just want to kind of share a little bit of this information and just kind of ease you into it. And then we're going to break these areas down and talk about them a little bit more in depth. So there are four pillars that come along with the operating system, and then we'll break things down a little bit as we go. So we got habits, right? Everybody has some type of habit, something that you do on a consistent basis. It's a part of who you are, it's a fabric of your being. And so as a result of that, it's a consistent thing that you do. A lot of times we don't think about it, we give it very little thought because it's a habit that is consistent with the fabric of who we are. Then we have productivity. Um, Many of us, we feel like we're making progress every day, but sometimes we're not being productive at all. We're busy, but we're not productive. And so that's another thing to think about. And then leadership, where are we in that path of leadership? Are we leading ourselves well? And if you're leading a team corporately, or if you're an entrepreneur and you have a staff or a team, how well are you doing that? And then how are you leading with your well-being? So that's your emotional state, your body, your health, your physicality. So these are four pillars that we want to take into consideration for our clarity operating system, the Clarity OS. And so this is what runs underneath everything else that we do every day. Our clarity operating system is the thing that fuels us. It's our engine. It's just like a vehicle. You got to make sure that that engine is running well, that the fluids are, up to date, the wiring, all the things. You have frequent oil changes, so forth and so on. Well, it's the same thing with our clarity operating system. That's all the things. It's just like we have operating systems on our computers. Our phones have operating systems. When they get cluttered and it's too much going on, they begin to do what? Number one, get slow. And then the next thing is they shut down. So it's important that your operating system, your clarity operating system, clarity operating system is working properly and it's functioning at its highest optimization. So, being the fact that the Clarity operating system is a silent, powerful engine that makes everything work together. Everything else works according to your operating system. When your OS, when your operating system is clear, your applications, that means the actions you take, the decisions you make, and the communication that you encounter, it runs more effectively, it runs smoother, and it runs faster. It's just like here again, like I said, these devices that we have, when they get overloaded, they start slowing down because there's really not enough room in there for you to download one more app, for you to upload one more thing. There's no room. There's no room for more pictures. So that means you got to declutter, you got to remove some things, or you got to clean some things up, or you have to do a total overhaul of your system. So it's important that you are clear about the things that help you to run effectively and help you to run well. So that's one of the things that's most important. But then with that operating system, there is a core code that goes along with that. So there are three areas that really are that it's that triune that works, right? So that core code of our operating system is number one, our values, right? It's important that we know what those things are. That's our why, right? So that's the principle that guides our decisions. It defines what's meaningful to us. Is it your faith, your family, your finances, your friends? What are the things that are in fact integrity, right? What are the things that are important to you when it comes to those core values? And I always say, you know, at least have those top three things. What are those top three things, right? And then we have number two, we have goals. So the goals, that's the what, specifically, what are we aiming for personally and professionally? What are those outcomes that we're working toward? What's the end result we want to see? What's the manifestation that we want to see? What vision do we have and what do we want to see come to manifestation? Those are the goals, right? So those align with the values as well. And then we have our actions, right? Remember, this is our core code. These are the three elements that are the core code of our operating system. So the how. So that's, our priorities, how we get our things to manifest, how we get our goals to come to life. That is important that our core code is in place, our values, our goals, and our actions. So, first of all, we got to really know what our why is, right? Why we are. Then we got to know what it is that we're aiming for. What are those goals? And then how are you going to get there, right? What steps are you going to take? What action are you going to take to get there? And so when we talk about installing that clarity operating system, we think about a few things, just a few. And like I say, we're going to break this down a little bit more. We're going to talk about it in a little bit more detail because I really want you to think about, am I clear? Am I really clear when it comes to, personal relationships, family, friends, inner circle? Uh, am I clear with, what I do professionally, corporately, organizationally, whatever that may be, right? So you got to define your inner clarity, right? So, because that establishes your core principles and it's your direction. So you're clear. When you get clear, that's your compass. That's what guides you. You're clear about who you are as an individual, what your values are, what you stand for, right? What you are and why you are, why you exist, what's your purpose in life. That's clear, right? So because when that gets clear, I say it all the time. When you gain clarity, you gain confidence. And when you gain confidence, you when you gain confidence, you communicate better. And when you communicate better, you can collaborate better, meaning you can share with people where you are, your vision, so forth and so on, and they can understand where you are and where it is that you stand. And then number two, you got to turn your vision into structure. So you got to make your clarity visible in your everyday life. So that means what you clear about needs to tangibly show up. So you need to have a calendar where it's just not, in your head, but it's documented somewhere. That's why pen to paper is important, because before we get to the devices, before we get to AI, before we get to all the things, it starts right here. But we have to get it out of here and we have to get it on paper. And so when we write it, there's a whole different process for how we manage that information and how we process that information. So that's why it is super, super, super important that we have structure for our vision. So number two, we have to turn our vision into structure. And then three, we got to practice ongoing refinement. That goes back to what I said about the fact that clarity is not a one-time event. It's not a discovery. It's not a destination. So once you get there, that's not the end of it. And most people miss it right there, because once you manifest something, whether it was writing a book, launching a business, buying a new home, buying a new car, whatever your endeavor was, once you get there, it's like, I've made it. No, that's the ground floor. You just started. You gotta now, when once you launch that business, then you gotta manage that business so it can stay a business. Once you get the home, you got to manage the home, pay the mortgage, the whole nine, so you can keep the home. Once you purchase the car, you got to pay for the car until you pay it up. So all of those things have to be managed. So that means clarity is a process. And so what you got clear about today or last week, you may have to get clear about something else next week, because it's a new situation, new circumstances, new situations, new people to deal with, the whole nine. However, what's going to be your compass in gaining the clarity for new situations is your clarity operating system. Is that good? So treat clarity as a dynamic practice, right? Not a one-time event, because it is not a one-time event. Um, so I think I can make it through this piece, and then I'm probably going to um, wait. So I'm at least get through this part. So defining your inner clarity. So that's the first one we started with. And then I'll continue next week and we'll talk about the other parts. Start by codifying what truly matters. When you want to get clear, you got to know what matters to you and for you. So this is just not a vague exercise. This is about making specific choices, because the whole point of being clear is so that it fosters good decision making. It helps you to be precise. It helps you to not procrastinate. It helps you with your non-negotiables, which we're getting ready to talk about. So when we're defining our inner clarity, we got our three core values that we just talked about. So that's, your fundamental principles. These are the things that you refuse to compromise on, because this is your core value. Then you have your goals. So here again, let's stay with three. Three goals. What are your three goals? Personal and professional. And what peaks are you climbing toward in this season to get to those goals? So we're at the end of the year, the last quarter of 2025. We're getting ready to go into 2026. For all intents purposes, we're pretty much already there. So, what is your mindset about that? Are you clear about where you're going? What are the things you need to be doing to get there? That's the question that needs to be on. Because if you don't have these things already written down, like I already have stuff already laid out for 2026, where if you haven't even thought about it, then you gotta get to work. So next week, I'm going to just give you some examples of some things that you want to just kind of, be thinking about, so that you can kind of assess. We're going to do a clarity operating system kind of audit, right? So I'm just going to, pull some things together that you can just think about to just test yourself, right? And then the last thing I want to touch on is you want three non-negotiables. What are the hard boundaries you need to protect your energy and your well-being? So is that with family? Is that with a spouse? Is that with children? Is that with uh, pro- colleagues, professional colleagues, or whatever the case may be? Is it ministry? Whatever it is, what are your three non-negotiables? And you need to determine what those things are, and you need to stick with that. Create those boundaries, and look, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. No is okay. And not only that, some of the things that we're doing, we're being busy, but we're doing more rework, so we're not being productive. Because when we're busy, we're not clear. we're making decisions out of impulse, emotions, and all the things. We're not making clear, concise decisions because we're clear about our core values, our goals, and where it is we're trying to go, and we're harnessing our non-negotiables. All right. So I'm gonna cut it off right there for tonight. And then we'll talk a little bit more about step two, step three, and then we'll go into a little bit more about how to help us determine if we're clear. So we'll do a little assessment and just rhetorically, I won't know the answers unless you provide them. But at the end of the day, are you are you clear? Right? Because that's important. It's important that you're clear. And with all the things that we have going on, we have information coming at us every day. I mean, we're in information overload. That's the world we're in. So information is coming all the time from all different directions on our devices, on our computers, we're getting it from everywhere. And so we have to be clear so that we can prioritize what we're taking in. It's one thing to take in information, it's another thing to process that information. And so when we're taking in information, but we're not processing information, we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to have a grounding season so we can have a growing season. And so when we have a grounding season, that means we take the time to pause, reflect, and think about and process the things that we have taken in, what we've learned, what we've heard. I know on any given Sunday, I'm probably going to hear two or three messages at minimum. Well, that's a lot of information. That doesn't even count research, reading, all the other things that I'm doing and taking in information on a daily basis. So I have to take a day and just like, okay, let me just read through what I've gone through, what I've gotten, what I've written down, my notes, look at my notes, what do I have? Because it's easy to take it in, never process it, and you don't even know sometimes the prayers you've prayed, things you've asked for and desire, they've already happened, or you are in position for the opportunity for them to happen. You don't even realize it because we're so busy that we're not being productive with processing the information. And so when we come out of these grounding seasons, then we can get ready and go into our growing season. Is that good? All right. Well, listen, I wanted to just kind of introduce you to this conversation of a clarity operating system. We're going to go deeper and we're going to talk about it. And I hope that you will be a part of this series. Tell somebody if this was good, if it made you think about something, uh, if it pricked your heart in any way. Share it with somebody. Will you do it? And then while you checking it out, like and subscribe. Will you do that for me? I'd appreciate it. Love to bring content and just share things that are on my heart and things that are a blessing to me and that'll help the people that I work with. So the Clarity Operating System, we're gonna go deeper with it, okay? All right. So I'll see you back here next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we'll go further.